And we are live. What is up, everyone? Welcome back. If you've been watching live, we have been on stream for a while now. We are over an hour into the stream, but if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, this is the start of a brand new video. So whether you are watching this live as it happens or watching it after the fact on YouTube, it truly is an honor to have you hanging out with me. Today, we are going to continue our series of working through all of the Azure labs by pwnlabs.io. If you have not checked out pwnlabs.io, would really encourage you to do so. By far, the best cloud labs I have stumbled across. They offer hands-on, practical, realistic labs in AWS, Azure, and GCP, and they're constantly adding new content. So really excited to explore the platform. Recently got access to a full premium sub, so I have access to all their labs. But before we dive into the premium content, we are continuing to work through the free labs, at least on the Azure side of things. Also, had the opportunity to sit down with Ian, who's the founder of Pwn Labs, and had a really good conversation with him. And I'm going to bring him on stream in about 4 weeks. I need to create the event, but we're going to hear all about his story. You'll have the opportunity to meet him and ask him questions. But truly, check out Pwn Labs, incredible lab environment. What's the link? The link is pwnlabs.io. Right here, pwnlabs.io. Going to adjust my audio on my end just a little bit. But pwnlabs.io, the lab we're going to do, again, today is completely free. So you don't need a subscription. You can just log into an account and you can join in. So here we are, pwnlabs.io. I'm going to go ahead and click Dashboard. And we will sort our labs by platform. We're going to do Azure. And see if it works. There we go. Now we have all of our Azure labs. So we just did Azure Blob Container to initial access. And we have this other free lab, unlock access with Azure Key Vault. So let's do this one next. We'll click Start Pwning. We'll turn our lab on. And here we go. And it looks like we're actually picking up where our last lab left off. So if you remember the lab that we just did, or maybe the video that just released before this one, we compromised a static website doing Azure Container, and we were able to do anonymous read access. That we then threw that in Azure Storage Explorer. We restored some versioning. We found a script with credentials, and we logged into the portal as Marcus. So we're starting at a similar place where we left off. So once again, fun stuff. This is almost like a build on to the lab that we just completed. And let's go ahead and copy some of this information into our notes. So we already have, let me log back into my Kali machine. We already have his credentials here. So we'll just do that. We'll do this and we'll call it Azure Key Vault lab, maybe. And here are our credentials from the previous lab. And let's go back to our Windows machine and copy down all of our scenario information here. And also focus. Oh, real world attack. This is what I want. Real world context. I like including that in my notes. So we'll go here, paste it here, and I just like to format this a little bit better. So we'll make our credentials H1. We'll make our scenario H1. So here's our scenario. After successfully compromising the Azure user account Marcus at megabigtech.com and gaining access to their cloud environment, megabigtech have asked us to see how far we can penetrate into the cloud environment and if we can access any confidential data. Specifically, they need us to assess the security of resources associated with Azure subscription ID that. So we have one specific subscription in scope. So if this is a real pen test, we want to make sure we're not poking at other subscription IDs. So one of the first things we want to do is make sure we're looking at the right subscription. We have some lab prerequisites. I'm actually going to erase that, but I do like to keep our learning outcomes here because it kind of gives us a roadmap on what we're trying to do. So familiarity with Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell, access secrets in Azure Key Vault, and query data in storage tables. And here is our real world context. We'll make this H1. Azure Key Vaults, which store sensitive data like secrets and certificates, are high-value targets for attackers aiming to compromise multiple services. Additionally, high-privileged contractor accounts that aren't properly managed pose a risk for privilege escalation and are also attractive targets for attackers? Well, we already gained access to this account, and so we're going to authenticate to Azure, at least the Azure PowerShell, with that username. I did already technically do it at the end of the last video and even on the stream before this one, but I'm going to redo the process for those of you who might be joining this video fresh. So on our Windows VM here, we are going to do connect AZ account. And here is Marcus, who we compromised. And we'll go ahead and grab his password from our notes. Okay, we got access to it. And now we want to make sure we're targeting the right subscription. If we look back over at our notes, it says we want to target the Azure subscription ID that, and I don't know off the top of my head the command for that. What is the Azure PowerShell command to check subscriptions in the account? Get AZ subscription is the command that I am looking for. So let's do that. Get AZ subscription. Okay, so there's our subscription ID. We only have one subscription, so I'm guessing the one subscription we have is the one that's in scope. But once again, on a real pen test, you want to make sure you're only testing the one that's in scope. So yeah, the CEFF one, that is the one. So we don't have to set the subscription ID since it's the only subscription ID we have access to. But if there is multiple IDs here because a client told us, hey, we want you to test this one, we want to be very careful not to poke at other subscription IDs. But this is the one they want us to test. So we have confirmed that. Enumerate for situational awareness and lateral movement. So one tool that we can experiment with is GraphRunner. If I CD to CD back, CD to desktop, CD tools, CD GraphRunner, clear, dir, we'll import module, GraphRunner.ps1. Okay, and now let's go ahead and actually check out this wiki because I always forget the syntax. And I need to change my display settings as well to dark mode. None of this light stuff. Maybe it's theme or something. Jeez, I can't type. Themes and related settings. We want to do dark. There we go. Much better. So welcome to the GraphRunner wiki. The first thing we want to do is authenticate as our target user, and it looks like we can do that with get graph tokens. Get graph tokens. Okay, and it says go to this page using that code, so we'll copy that and we'll go over to that page and we'll grab our code. Here's our code. And Marcus is our account that we compromised. We'll have to grab his password from our Kali machine. Eagles. Okay, we're signed in, hopefully. There we go, we got access, and there's a bunch of different modules on here, but if we look back at our scenario here, it says access secrets in Azure Key Vault, so there might be some passwords there, and I think there's a module for dumping secrets here on the pillage module, I think. So not search mailbox, not SharePoint, not search terms, not user attributes, not get inbox, not get Teams chat. All right, let's look around at some of the modules this offers. I think there's one for this. Maybe recon and enumeration. Access policies, dump apps, get security groups, updatable groups, get dynamic groups, SharePoint URLs. Maybe I'm thinking of Microburst. Let's see. Dump secrets GraphRunner Azure. Maybe it's Microburst. Microburst wiki. Okay, well, maybe if we did Azure, that'd be a good starting spot. AZ functions. Get AZ passwords. Here's what I'm looking for. I think this will try to dump passwords from any Azure Key Vault that we have access to. So let's actually do that. Microburst, clear, dir, and we'll do import module, Microburst. And while it does that, let's read up on how to properly do this. So I think if I'm authenticated in PowerShell AZ module, it'll automatically pass my credentials for these attacks, I think. So we don't have to like authenticate like we did with GraphRunner. But we'll find out. Want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. Let me check out LinkedIn. All right, so far so good. What do we got? People 24. We have a little over 30 people hanging out at 9:30 at night. Yo, that's awesome. Thank you all for joining me live. Really do appreciate it. Need a drink of water. Too much talking. We're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. With Microburst anyways. We can read about Microburst a little more. So here's what I think might be helpful. It says this function will collect available credentials from the following services in Azure: app services, storage accounts, CosmoDB, container registries, key vaults. And here's where I think is going to be key. If we have access to a key vault, it's going to collect this data. Automation accounts and Azure Kubernetes services. Run with all services and all options. Run with all. This is probably the command. Get AZ passwords verbose might be the easiest command. We'll just start with that and see if it works. Okay. So get AZ passwords verbose. I meant passwords PowerShell. Can't you read that? And we'll do enter. That is the right subscription ID. Okay. We're logged in as Marcus at megabigtech.com. Wonder why that didn't work. Because I saw this key vault in the portal, like at the end of the last lab, I saw this key vault. Let me connect. Let me just reconnect to Marcus's account. I'm just gonna use another account. Maybe something like went weird between the two labs, or maybe I'm doing it wrong. If this doesn't work, we're going to go to the portal, and I want to see if I can do it directly from the portal instead, right? They should always have multiple ways to do the same attack. Let's see. If we re-authenticate, I'm going to try to dump those passwords again. If that doesn't work, we're going to go to the portal and see if I can do it that way. If that doesn't work, we may need to privesc a different way and get access to something else. Can EDR on a virtual machine still detect malware on a container within that virtual machine? Yeah, it should be able to. Yo, what up, Justin? Watching for a while. Finally caught you live. How are you? I'm doing well, my friend. Thank you for asking. Oh, look, it worked that time. I was right. So it must have just been a weird thing with authentication, because last time, you can even see it here, it failed. I re-authenticated, and we have some values here now. So look at this. We have some contractor accounts, which are often overprivileged. We have our name, value, name, value, name, value. So let's go ahead and grab this information and drop it in our notes. Right? Here's our information. And now we want to know, okay, are any of these users valid users? And we can actually enumerate all the users in Azure. We might be able to do that here with Microburst. Or maybe not. I know we can do it with we can do it really easily with GraphRunner. Let's switch back over to GraphRunner now. And now I have to remember how to connect to GraphRunner. Get graph tokens. You think I'd have that memorized? Yeah, pwnlabs.io, Clayhacks. We are doing some Azure pen testing. I'm going to re-authenticate again since for some reason that one authentication seemed a little bit broken. Let's just re-authenticate. And I am going to use another account. I just want to do this over again with our other credentials. Oh. Okay, there we go. And now on GraphRunner, we should be able to dump all the users, and we can see if we can match any of those contractors to possible user accounts and see if we're able to log into them. So here we go. Get Azure AD users tokens. We don't need to do an out file. I doubt there's a whole bunch of users. Let's just look at it. Oh, do I need an out file? Okay. We'll do an out file. Let's go back over to make directory Azure Key Lab. All right. Oh, there we go. So we can see the users here. And if we look over at our labs, who did we compromise? So one was an Alyssa Suarez. And I'm not seeing an Alyssa. One was a Josh Harvey. Oh, there we go. External. So we do have a Josh Harvey account right there. Let's grab that for our notes. So we have a Josh Harvey account. What about Ryan Garcia? I don't think so. So we just have the one external Josh Harvey who's a contractor who might have a little more privileges. So let's go ahead and see if we can actually log into the Azure portal as Josh Harvey. We will go ahead and sign out here. So let's grab Josh Harvey. And Josh Harvey's password looks like it's right here. What up, Tagora? Good evening. Good to have you here. And we were able to authenticate. What were you trying to do though? What's the scenario? So enumerate for situational awareness, done. Access secrets in Azure Key Vaults. Okay, query data in storage tables, I see. So one way we can do that is once again with my sweet Azure Storage Explorer that we were using before. And you can actually see from when I was originally doing this, but I'm going to go through the entire process for you. We'll go here in order to connect because this account's going to be broken anyways. Yes, remove. And we will go ahead and click sign in with Azure. And here we're going to sign in with that account as well. And we'll grab our password from right here. Sign in. Okay, authenticated, so let's open Storage Explorer. You are now signed in. Beautiful. Okay, now if we go to list the resource we have access to as Josh Harvey, we have a few things. So we have security configs. We have security configs for security PC, no data available. We have logs, no data available. Oh, here's that website, y'all. This is what I couldn't access before. This is that website that had the script that was deployed as that user that they tried to delete, and then we gained access to it. Looking over at YouTube, Justin said, are you working on the Azure Labs? I am. And hey, Zach, good to have you here. And we have a customer database. It sounds like sensitive information. At least that's what we should think. We got some errors. Tables. Okay, we have some tables here. And look at this table called customers. Looks a little bit different than all the other ones. And the scenario asked us to find sensitive information, didn't it? They need us to assess security of resources associated with that. See if we can access any confidential data. Customer data. Sure sounds like confidential data. So here we have credit card numbers, card expirations, customer ID, and their name. Definitely sensitive data. And you can see we also have a flag right here. And we can go ahead and copy that value. Control C. And I'm going to jump back over to our lab environment. And we will submit the flag. And there we go. Yes, Marcus, this lab is completely free, my friend. No subscription required, but we have successfully completed the lab. But before we sign off, let's read through the official walkthrough. And like the last walkthrough, I did it completely different than the official walkthrough. Let's see if it holds true again this time. So Entra ID is the identity provider for Azure. Yep. An Azure subscription is a logical unit of Azure services that is linked to an Azure account. And so that's why we are focusing on one subscription. For this assessment, we should install PowerShell in the Azure CLI. I already had that installed. So they logged into the Azure instance using the Azure CLI. I used Azure PowerShell. After authenticating, we return the terminal and run connect Azure AD to log in using the Azure PowerShell as well. So I use connect AZ account. So once again, doing it completely different than the official walkthrough. Instead of who am I, they did like the familiar Azure who am I command. Shows the full name as well, the flag that we gained in the previous one, which we did that lab right before this one. We can see that they are a member of the directory readers, a group that allows us to enumerate Entra ID. Checking if we have permission to other resources. So a very simple script that's doing that. And you can see we have access to X contractors. You could also see this just through the GUI. So if I go, I won't pull it up, but in the GUI, you can also see this. We can also, so there you go. If you go to the portal and log in as Marcus, you can also see that right away that you have access to this X contractors because I noticed it. Clicking on all resources or navigating to this URL, we see X contractors. Yep, exactly what I was saying. And then let's see what's inside the Key Vault. So what I did is I used Microburst and the get AZ passwords module. This is a more manual way to do it, but yo, Microburst, you guys saw me do it. Super easy. Maybe more script kiddie way of doing it, but hey, the tool did the job and it dumped all the secrets for these two users for me. So this is very much the manual way of doing it. So this is basically what Microburst is doing in the background, right? Grabbing these secrets and we did it the same way. So let's see if any of these names match existing users. Oh, so they just kind of essentially grepped their way through it in some ways, just saying, hey, does given name equal Alyssa? Does given name equals Josh? Does given name equal Ryan? And then if so, print it out in a table, and they found Josh. I manually did it, but if we were actually dealing with an enterprise environment with hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of users, this would definitely be the better way of going about that. And there's our Josh user. We have the object ID. So here's where I just I have Josh. I logged in as Josh and did it that way. But the hint I had, which isn't realistic, is it said access secrets in Azure Key Vault. When you're doing a pen test, the client isn't going to tell you access secrets in Azure Key Vault and then query data in storage tables. So what's helpful about this is it shows you how you'd really approach it. I kind of used the learning objectives almost as a cheat. I knew what I was supposed to do, and I just did that specific thing. Here we're getting Azure AD membership for the user to see what we actually have access to. And if you run this, you can see customer database access, and that would give the hint, hey, we might want to check out a table with Azure storage. Checking permissions that are assigned. Okay, so they're just doing essentially what I did, but I used, once again, Azure Storage Explorer because I find it a lot easier than remembering all these CLI commands. So checking storage, checking permissions. Shows customers. Yep, so exactly what I did, but using Azure Storage. Oh, and you can use Azure Portal as well. So if we logged into the portal, we could have just done tables that way and looked at it. All right, let's read about defense. The first compromised IAM account had access to an Azure Key Vault that contains the creds for other high-prived user accounts. One of these credentials was found to match an existing IAM user. Does a contractor account still need to be there, or can it be disabled or deleted? The contractor account was a member of a group that had access to the customer's storage table, and due to lack of encryption, they could view the confidential payment details of all mega big tech employees. Remember, sensitive data should be encrypted at rest and in transit. The attack chain starting with the previous lab shows how any user on the internet would be able to access this information and how multiple avoidable mistakes combine together to cause a breach. Hardening Azure Key Vaults and ensuring least privilege access policies along with regular monitoring audits can help mitigate these risks. And now I'm curious, now that we have access to Josh's account, I think here I'm logged into Josh's account, can we fix the original issue? We have access to the static website. If you remember the last video, or if you're watching on stream, the last lab that we did, it was abusing a blob that was not deleted that had sensitive information here. If I go to containers here, web, oh no. So our contractor doesn't have access either. I was seeing if I could use the contractor and delete that file, that versioning file, just to properly remediate these past two labs. But if you missed the last video, watch it. We walk through how you would actually fix this initial issue. But ladies and gentlemen, we have now completed, if I can scroll up, unlock access with Azure Key Vault, and almost like a two-part lab, because our last lab was part one, getting access to these credentials, and then we did some cool stuff in order to get access to a contractor account. We found customer data, and we were able to find the final flag. Once again, very much a realistic lab. And the other thing I enjoyed, like the previous lab, is I did it in a pretty different way than the official walkthrough, and yet we still got to the same goal. So there's multiple ways to complete these labs, multiple ways to get to the end goal, and I really do enjoy that factor from the Pwn Labs team. So Pwn Labs, kudos once again on the incredible work for another excellent lab. Really enjoyed it. Hope you all enjoyed it as well. For those of you watching on YouTube, this is the end of this video. So hopefully you can jump to the next one and learn more Azure and cloud pen testing, or just jump to one of my other videos. Do appreciate you taking the time to support my channel, to watch one of these videos, and I will see y'all in the next one.